Okay, get ready for a tough one today.
Yeah.
On December 29th, 2024, a Jeju Air passenger plane crashed while it was trying to land in South Korea.
Oh, wow.
We've got articles here from Times Now,
Okay.
eyewitness reports, official statements,
Uh-huh.
even some really intense video footage.
Yeah.
We're going to try to piece together exactly what happened and why this has become such a huge international story.
It really raises a lot of questions for sure.
Yeah, so to kind of set the scene, this was Flight 2216, a Boeing 737-800,
Okay.
coming back from Bangkok,
Mm-hmm.
175 passengers, 6 crew members.
Wow.
Supposed to land at Muan International Airport,
Right.
about 180 miles south of Seoul.
Yeah.
Tragically, it didn't make it.
Really a grim picture, unfortunately. Most of those on board are presumed dead. At least 85 fatalities confirmed so far.
Oh, wow.
They did find 2 survivors.
Okay.
But rescue efforts were still ongoing when these articles came out.
I can't imagine what the families at the airport were going through. The articles really describe just utter despair.
Right.
There's one quote that really got me from a fire department official.
Okay.
When asked about survival chances, he just said, "It's unfortunate, but that's what we're seeing."
Wow.
It's just so stark, you know?
No, but it really speaks to the severity of it.
Yeah, so what caused this? Initial reports point to a landing gear malfunction.
Mm-hmm.
There's also talk of a possible bird strike, but that's still being investigated.
Yeah.
What's really crazy to me is the video footage.
Right.
It actually shows the plane attempting to make a belly landing without its landing gear extended.
Wow.
You can see it skidding off the runway, crashing into a perimeter wall.
I did see that video. It's pretty telling.
Yeah?
I mean, first of all, it confirms the landing gear issue.
Yeah.
A malfunction like that
Yeah.
would make a normal landing impossible.
Right.
So the plane essentially had to make contact with the ground without its legs,
Right.
which is extremely dangerous.
It looks terrifying. The plane just skids along, hits the wall, and then this thick black smoke comes billowing out of the wreckage.
Yeah.
And you know what else I noticed?
What's that?
The pilot actually tried to land once,
Okay.
but then had to pull up and circle back for another attempt.
Right.
That's called a go-around, right?
Exactly. A go-around is a standard procedure.
Okay.
When a pilot determines it's not safe to land,
Mm-hmm.
they essentially abort the landing and try again.
Gotcha.
So this tells us that the pilot knew there was a problem.
Wow.
Even before that final fatal attempt,
Okay.
they were trying to regain control of the situation.
So they knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
That must have been incredibly intense in the cockpit.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so we've got a potential mechanical failure,
Right.
a possible bird strike,
Uh-huh.
and a pilot battling to land a damaged plane.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets even more complicated.
Okay.
This crash happened just days after South Korea's acting president was impeached.
Now that adds a whole other layer to the story.
Yeah.
A major plane crash is a national crisis in any circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
But in this politically charged climate, it's really a powder keg.
Right.
The new acting president has ordered all-out rescue efforts,
Yeah.
which is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But you can bet every decision is going to be scrutinized.
It's like the whole country is on edge.
Yeah.
And now this happens.
Yeah.
Do you think this could be used by different political factions?
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
In times of crisis, there's always a risk of political maneuvering and blame shifting.
Mm-hmm.
This event could be used to either bolster or undermine the new acting president's authority.
Right.
It really depends on how the situation unfolds
Yeah.
and how effectively they manage the response.
Mm-hmm.
Public opinion is going to be a major factor here.
So we're not just dealing with the technicalities of a plane crash, but also with potential political fallout.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder how this will impact South Korea in the long run.
It does, and it really makes you think about all those individuals on that flight.
Right.
181 people with their own stories,
Mm.
their own hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
And then there are the families left behind grappling with unimaginable grief.
Right.
It's important to remember the human cost of this tragedy,
Yeah.
the impact on real people's lives.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
It's easy to get caught up in the technical details and the political drama,
right.
but ultimately this is about people.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like we have a lot more to uncover.
Yeah, definitely.
Where should we go from here?
Well, there's a lot to unpack.
Okay.
We need to understand those crucial final moments before the crash.
Yeah.
What happened in the cockpit? Were there any warnings,
Mm-hmm.
any signs of trouble?
Right.
And perhaps most importantly, what can be learned from this to prevent something similar from happening again?
Okay. Let's dive deeper into that in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good. Picking up where we left off, those final moments before crash.
Yeah.
Always the most crucial for investigators.
Right.
Really hold the key to understanding what went wrong and why.
Okay, so what are you seeing in these articles that could shed some light on those final moments?
Well, one detail that really stood out to me
Yeah.
was the mention of a distress signal
Okay.
sent out by the pilot just before the plane overran the runway.
Oh, wow.
This suggests that they were facing an escalating emergency
Right.
and trying to alert air traffic control.
So the pilot knew things were going from bad to worse.
It seems that way.
I remember they also mentioned that the control tower actually cleared the pilot to use an alternative landing area,
Right.
but for some reason they weren't able to.
Yeah, that raises some questions.
Yeah, like what happened?
Why couldn't the pilot divert?
Right.
Was it a mechanical issue that prevented them from changing course?
Mm-hmm.
Or was something else at play?
Yeah.
The answer could lie in the plane's black box.
Right. The black box.
Exactly.
It's like the plane's secret diary.
Sort of.
What exactly does it record?
It's essentially a flight data recorder
Okay.
that captures everything that's happening on board. It records the pilot's conversations.
Oh, wow.
Instrument readings, engine performance,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of technical data.
Okay.
Investigators use this information to reconstruct the flight
Yeah.
second by second
Right.
and really understand the chain of events.
So they can literally hear what was going on in the cockpit.
That's right.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a meticulous process,
Yeah.
but often the most valuable tool investigators have.
Wow.
The data from that black box could reveal whether the pilot was dealing with multiple system failures
All right.
or if that bird strike caused more damage than initially thought.
Yeah.
It might even explain why they couldn't make it to that alternative landing area.
It's like a puzzle just waiting to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of puzzles, let's talk about the possible causes we've already discussed.
Yeah.
First up, the landing gear malfunction.
Right.
You mentioned how dangerous that can be, especially during landing.
Yeah, a landing gear failure is one of the most challenging situations a pilot can face.
Right.
I mean, the landing gear is essential for a safe touchdown.
Yeah.
And without it, you're essentially trying to land a plane on its belly,
Right.
which is exactly what happened in this case.
You can see in the video just how disastrous that was.
Absolutely.
The plane skidded across that buffer zone before hitting the wall.
Those buffer zones are designed to give a plane some leeway if it veers off the runway.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it wasn't enough to prevent a crash.
Right.
And the severity of the impact really emphasizes just how crucial a functioning landing gear is.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the other potential culprit is that bird strike.
Right.
Is it really possible for something like a bird to bring down a massive airplane?
It might sound unbelievable,
Yeah.
but bird strikes are a serious concern in aviation.
Really?
At high speeds, even a small bird can cause significant damage.
But how? What kind of damage are we talking about?
Well, if a bird is ingested into an engine, it can cause catastrophic failure,
Oh, wow.
even a strike to a critical area like the windshield.
Yeah.
Or, as suspected in this case, the landing gear
Right.
can have disastrous consequences.
Yeah.
Imagine a bird hitting that landing gear mechanism during landing.
Mm-hmm.
It could disable the system
Wow.
and prevent the gear from deploying properly.
So this seemingly small thing
Yeah.
could be a major factor in the crash.
It's possible.
It sounds like a chain reaction of bad luck.
It does, but it's important to remember that these aren't just isolated incidents of bad luck.
Okay.
They highlight the inherent risks of aviation
Right.
and the importance of rigorous safety procedures and protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Every incident, every near miss, offers an opportunity to learn and improve.
Okay, so we have the landing gear,
Mm-hmm.
we have the bird strike,
Right.
and we also know the plane was 15 years old. Is it possible the age of the aircraft played a role?
While 15 years isn't particularly old for a commercial aircraft,
Okay.
age does bring wear and tear.
Right.
So it's certainly something investigators will consider. They'll likely comb through the plane's maintenance records,
Okay.
looking for any signs of pre-existing issues that might have contributed to the crash.
So it's all about piecing together the evidence.
Yeah.
The black box, the wreckage, the maintenance logs. It's like a giant high-stakes jigsaw puzzle.
Exactly. And the stakes couldn't be higher.
Right.
I mean, these investigations are all about finding answers,
Yeah.
not just for the families affected by the crash,
Yeah.
but also to prevent future tragedies.
Of course.
By learning from these incidents,
Right.
we make flying safer for everyone.
That makes sense. Now I want to circle back to the CEO of Jeju Air, for a moment.
Okay.
One of the articles mentioned a statement they issued after the crash.
Yeah.
And the language they used really stood out to me.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
It was very carefully worded.
Right.
They expressed deep apology
Yeah.
and emphasized their commitment to managing the aftermath.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is what that tells us about the situation.
What do you mean?
Think about it. They're not just talking about investigating the crash.
Right.
They're talking about managing the aftermath.
Right.
This suggests they're acutely aware of the multiple levels of responsibility they face.
Yeah.
They have to support the victims' families,
Mm-hmm.
deal with potential legal battles,
Right.
and navigate the massive blow to their company's reputation.
Yeah.
It's like they're bracing for impact on all fronts.
Wow. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah,
It's like they're preparing for a whole other kind of fallout.
exactly. And this speaks to the wider impact of an event like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the immediate crash.
Right.
It's about the ripple effects
Yeah.
that can last for years.
Right.
The airline's stock prices might plummet.
Yeah.
People might become hesitant to fly with them.
Right.
And there could be a push for stricter safety regulations across the entire industry.
It's amazing how one event can have such far-reaching consequences.
It is. It's a stark reminder of how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
And this particular crash
It's happening against the backdrop of a political crisis.
Mhm.
Could have even more unpredictable consequences.
It's strange.
Yeah.
But amidst all this tragedy,
Yeah.
there's also this element of human resilience.
That's true.
The articles mentioned there were 2 survivors.
Right.
I can't even imagine what it must be like to go through something like that.
The physical and emotional trauma of surviving a plane crash
Yeah.
is hard to comprehend.
Right?
One of the articles even quoted one of the survivors,
Oh, really?
a man named Lee Mo.
Okay.
He said he couldn't remember anything after touchdown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think he's blocking it out?
It's not uncommon for the mind to suppress traumatic memories
Right.
as a way of coping.
Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism
Right.
to protect itself from that overwhelming pain.
It makes you wonder about the long-term impact on those survivors, though.
Mm.
How do people even begin to rebuild their lives after something like that?
It's a long and arduous process, but it is possible.
There are resources available
Yeah.
to help survivors process the trauma
Yeah.
and begin to heal.
Right.
They might need therapy,
Okay.
support groups, and time to grieve and come to terms with what happened.
Yeah.
It's a journey of resilience.
Right.
And it's a testament to the strength of the human spirit.
That's inspiring to hear.
Yeah.
So even amidst all the sadness and loss,
Mm.
there's this glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
These survivors will carry the weight of this experience, but
Okay.
they're also proof that people can find a way to move forward.
I agree.
Okay, so we've covered the immediate aftermath of the crash,
Right.
the potential causes,
Mhm.
the political context,
Yeah.
and the impact on the survivors. But what about the bigger picture? What does this crash tell us about the state of aviation?
That's an important question.
Yeah.
While any plane crash is a tragedy,
Right.
it's also an opportunity to learn and improve.
Okay.
This particular incident
Yeah.
might lead to a renewed focus on safety regulations,
Right.
advancements in aircraft technology,
Mhm.
and potentially even changes in pilot training.
It's like a wake-up call for the entire industry.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
It forces everyone to kind of pause and reevaluate their priorities
Right.
to make sure that safety is at the forefront of everything they do.
So even though this is a story about a terrible accident,
Yeah,
it could potentially pave the way for positive changes
right.
that make flying safer for everyone in the future.
Exactly. And those changes are often driven by the memory of those
Yeah.
who were lost in these tragedies.
Right.
Their sacrifice, in a sense, becomes a catalyst for progress.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
It's like their legacy lives on in the form of safer skies for future generations.
I agree. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times,
Yeah.
there's always potential for growth and improvement. Okay, so, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I can't help but think about what this crash might mean for the future of aviation. What kind of lasting impact will it have?
What concrete changes might we see?
Well, it's likely to trigger a fresh wave of scrutiny on safety regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Regulators might examine everything
Mm-hmm.
from maintenance protocols to pilot training requirements.
Mm-hmm.
We could see stricter standards put in place,
Yeah.
more frequent inspections,
Okay.
and potentially even new technologies being mandated
Right.
to improve aircraft safety.
It's like the entire industry gets put under a microscope.
Precisely. And while it's impossible to eliminate all risks in aviation,
Of course.
every incident like this pushes the industry
Right.
to strive for higher levels of safety,
Yeah.
to learn from past mistakes.
So this tragedy could, in a way, lead to positive changes that benefit everyone who flies.
That's often the case.
Yeah.
The memory of these accidents and the lives lost
Right.
serves a constant reminder
Yeah.
of the importance of vigilance and the ongoing pursuit of safety improvements.
It's a bittersweet thought. But I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like turning tragedy into a catalyst for progress.
Exactly. And that progress often takes the form of technological advancements.
Okay.
This crash might accelerate the development and adoption of even more sophisticated systems
Okay.
for detecting potential problems,
Yeah.
alerting pilots to dangers,
Right.
and enhancing aircraft safety overall.
It's almost like the industry learns and evolves alongside these tragedies.
In a sense, it does.
Yeah.
Each incident becomes a data point,
Okay.
a lesson learned that informs future safety measures
Right.
and helps prevent similar accidents from happening again.
You know, one of the things that struck me most about this story
Yeah.
was the detail about only the tail of the aircraft remaining intact
Oh, wow.
amid the wreckage.
Yeah,
It's such a stark image.
it is.
Really brings home the force of the impact.
It's a haunting image for sure.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the immense challenges investigators face
Right.
when piecing together what happened.
Yeah.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where most of the pieces are missing or shattered.
So how do they even begin to make sense of something like that?
Well, it starts with meticulous documentation.
Okay.
They photograph and catalog every piece of debris,
Oh.
however small.
Okay.
Looking for clues,
Right.
they analyze the materials, search for signs of stress fractures,
Yeah.
try to understand how the aircraft broke apart on impact.
It sounds incredibly painstaking.
It is.
Yeah.
And then they cross-reference that physical evidence with the data from a black box,
Okay.
the radar recordings,
Right.
eyewitness accounts.
Wow.
It's a massive collaborative effort with experts from various fields working together
Right.
to reconstruct the events leading up to the crash.
It's like a giant forensic investigation, but with incredibly high stakes.
Precisely. And those stakes are what drive investigators
Right.
to be so thorough
Yeah.
and relentless in their pursuit of answers.
Yeah.
They're not just looking for a cause.
Right.
They're looking for ways to prevent a repeat of this tragedy.
So it's about accountability.
Yeah.
But it's also about learning and prevention.
Absolutely. And that's something I want to emphasize to our listener.
Okay.
Even though this was a horrific event,
Right.
it's not just a story of loss and despair.
Yeah.
It's also a story about the pursuit of knowledge, the dedication of investigators,
right.
and the potential for positive change.
I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by the sadness and the scale of the tragedy.
Right.
But you're right, there's also a lot to be learned from this.
And those lessons can be both technical and philosophical. On a
Absolutely.
technical level,
Yeah.
we can learn about aircraft design, safety procedures, and the limits of human response in crisis situations.
Right.
But on a deeper level,
Yeah.
this event invites us to reflect on the nature of risk,
Right.
the fragility of life, and the interconnectedness of our world.
That's deep.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it that way before.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to engage with these complex questions,
Right.
to grapple with the why and the how.
Yeah.
It's through that process of inquiry that we can truly learn from events like this
Right.
and hopefully make the world a little bit safer in the future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you want our listener to walk away with?
I'd say it's the importance of awareness.
Okay.
Be aware of the inherent risks involved in aviation. Be aware of the human cost of these tragedies.
Yeah.
And be aware of the potential for both progress and setbacks in the aftermath of a disaster.
I like that awareness. It's
Yeah.
like that old saying, knowledge is power.
Right.
The more we know, the better equipped we are to understand these complex events
Yeah,
and to advocate for change when needed.
exactly. And that knowledge can also help us navigate the emotional impact of these events.
Right.
By understanding the science behind aviation, the psychology of grief,
Right.
and the complexities of investigations,
Yeah.
we can approach these stories with a more informed and compassionate perspective.
You know, this deep dive has been heavy,
It has.
but it's been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
I feel like we've gone beyond just the headlines
Right.
and really explored the depth and breadth of this tragedy.
I agree. It's been a journey of discovery,
Yeah.
both intellectually and emotionally. And while we may never have all the answers,
Right.
I think we've come away with a deeper understanding of this event and its implications.
Well said. And to you, our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
We know it's not always easy to delve into difficult topics,
It's not.
but we hope this deep dive has provided you with some valuable insights
We do.
and perhaps even a sense of hope.
Yes.
Until next time,
Yes.
keep exploring, keep questioning,
Keep learning.
and keep learning.